All right, good morning, everyone. It is 9:30, May 8th. City Council is renewing its review of the mayor's proposed FY25 municipal budget. I'm Howard Shook, Chair of the Finance Committee. Vice Chair Wan is with us. Ms. Norwood is with us. Mr. Westmoreland is with us. Others will be in and out as their schedules permit. We're starting off with Public Works. We've allotted 90 minutes for them. They'll be followed by Invest Atlanta, and then we will break for lunch and return at 1 o'clock to hear from HR, Procurement, and Labor. Welcome Commissioner Wiggins, who's going to be presenting, which means he's working out of class. So we've got copies of your handout, and if you could introduce us to your team and take it away.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Council Member Shook. Good morning, Council members. I'm proud to introduce our stellar leadership team for the Department of Public Works. To my immediate left, we have Deputy Commissioner Keith Robinson. To his left, we have the CFO of DPW, Ms. Melissa Davis. To my immediate right, we have incoming Commissioner, Mr. Kentori Garman. And to his immediate right, we have Deputy Commissioner Anu. And if it's okay, we'll begin the presentation of our proposed budget. Slide 1 is just an overview of our org chart, which of course will change here soon with the new lineup under the watch of Commissioner Garman. Of course, we'd like to start off by highlighting some of our successes this year. I think we've had a great year. We'll start off with our ability to increase the number of automated side-loaded trucks in our inventory. This is helpful because, one, it helps to reduce the amount of injuries to our workers. Two, it helps us to perform the service much more efficiently with less staff members. The recent increase in staffing allowed us to increase our case completion rate by 9%. We currently have a 99% completion rate. We've been able to increase the cases that are closed within SLA by 4%. And also, we were able to onboard a telematics program that allowed us to fully automate our routes. You know the challenges that we've had in the past with providing this service through the efficient routing of vehicles. I'm proud to say that 100% of our routes are in the system. About 5% of the routes, we still need to do some cleanup work, and we'll speak to the in-house GIS team that will be working to assist with that effort. And we were able to manufacture 12 mobile surveillance cameras. The goal was to ensure that we had enough surveillance cameras for each district, and that contributes to a total of 16 cameras in our inventory. So we're very proud of the work that our fleet team has done and will continue to do to manufacture these cameras. They're also working on a prototype for a new camera that will not rely on battery power. It will be powered by a traditional combustion engine inside of that mobile surveillance trailer. A project that we're very proud of, we were able to launch an AI software pilot to identify litter, debris, graffiti, and things like overflowing trash cans throughout the city. If time allows, we'll go into a little bit more detail about this. I will say that the city of Atlanta is the only jurisdiction that we are aware of that is launching a program like this, so this is groundbreaking. Many thanks to the mayor and his support for this program. We look forward to giving you positive results in this program in another month and a half or so, I believe. Okay, so we have been able to decrease our case count by 11% during the onset of FY24, the first quarter of FY24. We're very proud of that. Our goal is to not handle cases more efficiently. Our goal is to eliminate the cause of the case. So another testament to the great work of the team. We're very excited about bringing a horticulturist on board here recently, who will lead a series of beautification projects throughout the city. We'll focus on many of our gateways and our high-profile corridors, so keep an eye out for various plantings. You all are familiar with the wildflower plantings, and this allows us to go beyond just basic wildflower plantings and to have the ability to plant different plant materials. You'll see in this slide the lower picture where we've been able to purchase a truck to help us with our goal of combating graffiti. The inside of the truck was designed by our fleet team. It comes fully equipped with a pressure washer and all of the things that are needed to combat graffiti out in the field. As you know, we have purchased over 100 smart sensor trash cans that will be installed on various corridors throughout the southwest areas of Atlanta. That program will continue as we use the data that's been collected from our spatial analysis that tells us exactly where we need to place these trash cans. We've also been able to establish a program team to centralize, manage, and optimize DPW's portfolio of projects and initiatives. And as I mentioned earlier, we were able to expand our department with our GIS capabilities, to better locate, display, analyze, and model information for DPW. Okay, so this next slide is our year-over-year budget trend for DPW. You'll see, well, starting with the general fund, there was an increase by 5.4%, which is in keeping with the inflation rate and the CPI that is associated with the services that fall under the general fund. And all of these services, with the exception of the fleet service fund, you'll see that variance increased by 15%. That's due to us really needing to increase the salaries of many of the technician positions. We were having a difficult time recruiting and retaining technicians, and so this increase is part of those salary increases, the much needed salary increases. The last item you see here is the Water and Wastewater Revenue Fund. This is our partnership with the Department of Watershed Management, where they assist with supplying street sweepers for us to do work in the combined sewer area, especially the areas that fall under the consent decree. There is a increase by 46% due to the maintenance for those vehicles. Somehow we did not attach the cost, the operational cost for the vehicles to the Department of Watershed Management. So now the cost will be absorbed through the department for any maintenance or repairs to those street sweepers. Okay, we'll go over our department-wide position count. You'll see for each particular area the amount of funded and unfunded positions. I will tell you that you will see a significant amount of positions under the Solid Waste Services Revenue Fund. As you know, we have seasonal needs. We had a very difficult time a few years back with removing yard debris from the curbside. Some of those positions are a result of that. I'm thankful to the team that they were able to streamline some of the routes and reorganize the teams that perform that work. So we are not exactly sure if all of those positions are needed, but we thought it would be prudent just to keep those positions there should some situation arise and we needed those positions. Okay, moving on to our year-over-year trends for the general fund. As you can see, the budget is pretty much in alignment with the FY24 adopted budget. Some slight increases that are associated with rising costs, inflation. However, you will see a few reductions there. it's good to see red sometimes, especially when it's associated with a reduction in costs, but nothing out of the ordinary, no substantial increases in that area either. Next, we have the Solid Waste Service Fund. If time allows, you may have questions about the proposed rate for FY25. I'm happy to address those, but no substantial increases in this area either. Moving on to the Fleet Service Fund, no substantial increases. You do see that there is a substantial increase in salaries. I'd say substantial. It's really germane to us being able to fund positions that we weren't able to fund previously. We anticipate that the onboarding process will be a lot more successful and it will go quicker. So you'll see that $2 million increase, particularly for our, many of our technician positions. Last, we have the Water and Wastewater Revenue Fund. No significant increases here either. And you will see a reduction in our purchase and contracted services. And that was our last slide, and we are happy to address any questions should you have any.
Thank you. We've been joined by Mr. Winston and Ms. Overstreet, who has the floor.
Good morning. Thank you so much for your presentation. 2 days straight, we get to see you in a commander role. And all right now, and thank you for that. Honestly, I know that transition is interesting, and you're handling it. I appreciate that for our city for sure. I just want to say thank you to you and your entire team for the hard work that you've put in for the entire year. Day in and day out, you guys have really showed up. You've made sure that you've been flexible to whatever situation is happening. Of course, your times have drastically improved over these last few years. And timing would be, on-time trash pickup, scheduling of pickups, or just even if it's not as quick as someone would like bulk to be picked up from the curb, they're clear about when you're coming. And those things are so important. And it really does make our job as council members easier, because I feel confident when I call your office for help if something is not going the way a resident wants it to go. I understand process, but they don't. No one really knows exactly how things are supposed to run except for DPW. And I just really appreciate, especially yesterday, that's when it was clear to me how we've really made a difference in this space. When I looked at all of the new trucks, I don't want to just call them trucks because they're like way more than that. The new apparatuses and innovation technology devices and everything that we have available to us now that you've onboarded for the city. When I looked around yesterday, it was clear to me that we really are doing what is necessary in order to make Atlanta beautiful. Now we just need to make sure that we get the word out to everyone. So I spoke about this yesterday during our program at Greenbrier Mall. Thank you for that as well. During the program for the kickoff of Operation Clean Sweeps Phase 3, I spoke about how I want us to do a huge litter campaign. I want us to partner with APS to get that done, because, and I've spoken with them about this, so they're open to it for sure. Growing up, I, as a little child growing up in Atlanta, was happy to tell my parents or anybody else around me that you can't throw that down, because we were taught that in class. And I think that it's important that we do the same for this generation, because this culture that's happening now is definitely a litter culture. And so it's going to take more than our beautiful devices and innovation, because we can always just keep going back and clean it up and clean it up. But our goal as humans is to have them not throw it down in the first place, so that we're cleaning up less, or it can stay beautiful longer, because you come by and clean up and I know you came, which is fantastic. I don't think the problem is our interworkings of our departments. I think we're doing a fantastic job. I really do. I think the problem is someone coming back the next day throwing the Wendy's out the window. And we can't come right back behind that person just to clean up. So I do think that you need a full-blown litter campaign, partner with APS. Let's put some budget money towards that. Let's fund it, and let's get that done, because I think that that is one of our main challenges right now, not your department. Looking at the AI innovation on top of the apparatus was, all of that was really enlightening yesterday, and was good to see. I really like to see our budget items in person like that. So thank you. And that's all I have.
Councilmember Overstreet, I did want to address, you mentioned that trash is being collected in a timely manner now. I am proud to say 3 years ago, the #1 complaint was for missed trash. The #1 call now is for a replacement trash can. DC Robinson and I said that the first day that I came on board, that we were going to tackle that problem head on, and then we would have to address complaints if the trash can was not returned to the proper location, or if the lid was closed. And so that's what we're aggressively working on now, but we're glad that that core service is being performed. I look forward to that partnership with the litter study and APS, but please don't leave the Department of Watershed Management out of this either, because much of that trash goes into the storm drain.
That's
so
right.
I think there's an opportunity for a partnership there as well.
Yeah, it's public education is important. And I think they would like to know that, first of all, the majority of the public would be happy that we're doing the litter campaign. That's first. And then the majority of the population for the city of Atlanta would love to know what happens when we do throw the trash just on the ground. But yes, I've noticed a huge difference in our times and the calls that are coming in about trash pickup, literally, and yard trimmings. Like, those calls are little to none at this point. They really are fine points like you're speaking about. So that's excellent.
Last thing, DC Robinson, Ms. Kanika Greenlee, who's the executive director of the Keep Atlanta Beautiful Commission, they are working on a litter impact study, and that campaign will follow. So basically, this litter impact study will allow us to understand the citywide impact, whether it's economic development, the actual cost, citywide, not just DPW, that's associated with littering, and also illegal dumping. So that study should be completed in about 90 days.
90 days.
Yeah.
And the other thing you mentioned, Councilman Overstreet, was real interesting when you mentioned that folks throwing Wendy's, wrappers, and everything else. One of the things that we want to look at as well is a correlation between different fast food health outcomes as well too, because we believe this is some of the data that we're collecting, that we can make that cross section to see what policy changes that we can begin to look at as well too. So
Excellent.
those are the things that we're actually looking at from a department standpoint.
Good point. Thank you so much.
Okay, I have a different take. I understand the study, and I actually was head of Keep Atlanta Beautiful when it was called the Clean City Commission back in the 1990s. What we've lost is a really good advertising message. And I said to the former colleague who was on Keep Atlanta Beautiful's board, our representative, I said, look, I don't care what it is, but do something like, love Atlanta, don't trash it. Do something like, our city is not your garbage can. Do, whether it needs to be edgy for young people, get some people who are, back in the day, we were talking about athletes, and nobody ever did this. But if you had a television commercial that had one of the premier basketball players throwing trash into a trash can up in the air like it was a hoop, if you had a baseball player swinging trash into a trash can, I mean, let's take the people that, the kids and other people that are just not paying any attention and do that kind of edgy thing, and then appeal to all the people who really do love Atlanta. You know, this is the ATL, you know, don't trash my town. That's the most important thing for us to do. We can do all the study in the world, but we need something that gets out there that's catchy. I'm not the marketing lady to do it. I just was in radio for years and in marketing. So I'm not the best one to say, use this or use that. But it doesn't take forever with focus groups to give you back the feedback that you need. And I love the idea of APS because you want these kids at 6, 7, 8 to go, yuck, you don't want to do that. You know, that's not a good idea to just throw that out because we are all cleaning up every day. I had a fast food on my street in front of my house where I had to dodge our commuter traffic to go pick it up because nobody else was. And y'all can't come all the way out to a street for 2 pieces of trash, but it's constant and we can't get ahead of it until we have a major marketing, and it doesn't have to cost a fortune. It's just got to be clever. The other thing is back in the 1990s, I hired homeless guys to go deliver the streets, and I've talked to y'all about this before. GDOT gave the city $350,000 for these guys to keep the interstate ramps and the state routes clean because GDOT didn't want to have to send a crew in. And what we did in exchange for that is if there was a repair on a state road, we did it. And so they wouldn't have to worry about it. Now, the state roads don't have the kind of potholes that the city roads have, and I'm not trying to make that a topic of today. But the point is, they saw value in having the city look better. And in those days, I think now Georgia Works is still doing that. But I passed 50 people at the church next door. Let's get some people working. I mean, can we just work for the sandwich? Can we just have people do something? And I did that personally and raised $500,000. So I know it can be done. And I know we can have some people going out and feeling better about themselves. Everybody can make something look better. And what we did back then is we gave them cameras, disposable cameras, to take a before picture and an after picture. I can't tell you over those months, and this was around the time of the Olympics, over those months, how many guys would say, you got to look at my picture. We really got that because they had a validation that they were out there doing it. And so that year, I lost a lot of gloves because winter was coming, but I didn't lose one camera. Every disposable camera, and of course that's 30 years ago, but every disposable camera showed back up because people were proud of what they did. So that's not off topic. It's not your department's responsibility directly, but Lord, could we just make it? Could we kind of get and particularly where I see it happening in my part of town is not individual homeowners, and I know Marcy's homeowners that really live there. And it's not abandoned and it's not rented, whatever. We know that our homeowners take care of their property. But what you got in my area is where it's a wall community and they're not out right at the street. So Collier Road right there at Northside Drive, that's a wall community. So the litter accumulates and it accumulates on the exit ramp. It's just where people don't have that claim of that piece of property. So if there's anything council can do, send to y'all, this particular with a picture or something to just see how we can clean on a more ongoing basis or employ these guys. I've paid them from time to time out of my budget because this is Atlanta. The whole world comes here. And with all of our conventions, everything that we can do that just makes that experience feel better is just so important. So I will, now that I've given you all of my thoughts, I do want to thank you. You've done a great job this year. We had the yard trimmings and leaves, and you just really got with how y'all would make sure that was picked up as well. So I am very grateful to you. So
thank you.
Guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Commissioner Wiggins and all our DPW heroes, Department of Public Works heroes, for everything you do to keep our city clean and just moving forward. We've come so far since 2 years ago when we came in the office in terms of the calls and what was happening with, people not, being able to make it work because of COVID, but just want to commend you for that. One budget question I had was around street sweeping. I know that we purchased a bicycle lane street sweeper a year ago. I haven't actually seen it in service. I just wanted to know if we still have one. Are there plans to add one? Just kind of want to see where we are with that.
So a great question, Councilmember Winston. We have one bike lane street sweeper. We are working with the Atlanta Department of Transportation to arrange a memorandum of understanding for DPW to completely take those services over. However, our team will go out periodically. I don't know the exact interval, but that bike lane street sweeper is running. I would also like to share that we purchased a new style of signs to notify property owners and surrounding residents of street sweeping activity. We're going to ramp up our social media notifications across all platforms, and hopefully that will assist with getting some of the vehicles that are in the path of the street sweeper removed. So jokingly, I told my staff that we were going to debut these signs in your district because you have so many bike lanes in your district and so many cars that are parked on a roadway. But we're excited about that. Some larger variety of signs, almost like construction signs that you'll see on the fringe of the area that's being serviced. But to answer your question, we're working with the Atlanta Department of Transportation to take that service over and to acquire any of the resources that they have to use to perform those services.
Or is that street sweeper currently under the purview of the Department of Transportation right now?
No, that street sweeper was purchased by the Department of Public Works.
Okay. Do you see a need for adding more? Just one seems like may not be enough to cover the entire city of Atlanta.
No, certainly it's not enough. Deputy Commissioner Garman has been working with this GIS team, and our new incoming fleet director, who has extensive experience in this area due to his work in Washington, D.C., where they have several bike lanes. Rather than just purchasing spec-built street sweepers, as you know, many of the bike lanes have different width, have different challenges with accessing those bike lanes. So luckily we have somewhat of an SME in-house that will help us to order the street sweepers and also to help us to understand which street sweepers are more fragile than others. It's a very fragile piece of equipment, which has contributed to some of our challenges with keeping those vehicles in operation. He has some ideas of how to use our inside fabrication team to reinforce those street sweepers to prevent them from being so easily damaged, such as the brooms and other mechanisms on the street sweeper.
Okay. And then secondly, I know we've added several of the side sweepers and been very, very happy to see those out in service. Can you talk about kind of the personnel level to have those versus the normal collection trucks?
Yes, so the automated side-loaded trucks, they are designed to be operated by a single operator. A traditional crew is a crew of 3 team members, a driver and 2 collectors that work with that driver. If we find areas that are suitable for the use of an automated side loader, which about 90%, nearly 90% of the city could be serviced through those vehicles, it would allow us to reduce the staffing for that particular route, if you will, by 66%. So the savings is something that we're proud of, but we're more excited about the opportunity to reduce injuries. The ergonomics of picking up trash, bending over, stepping on and off the truck is brutal. We're hoping that we'll be able to onboard more of the automated side loader trucks as we liquidate some of the existing trucks while they still have value, and we can reinvest the money from selling those vehicles into purchasing additional automated side loader trucks.
And I know my colleagues talked a little bit about kind of some different campaigns in terms of being able to reach the public. Seems like there may be a need to add one in terms of how you put your garbage and recycling bins on the side of the curb when you're dealing with the automated side loaders. I know I've seen where you've had to have someone come and actually place them on the right side of the road before the automated side loader comes down the street. So just let us know how we can help, communicate that information to our constituents.
Yep.
Absolutely. We're also looking at putting decals on the cans that will give instructions on the proper placement of the cans at the curbside.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair.
All right, it's my turn. Good morning, Commissioner. Appreciate the budget presentation. I've got kind of three sets of questions. The first one has to do with the staffing and the budget piece. Second will be around solid waste, and then third will be around homeless encampments. So in terms of the staffing level, I first want to commend you. I appreciate, this is exactly what I want to see when you talked about fleet service fund. Like, you're making adjustments proactively in terms of salary to help with recruitment. I've been asking about this for what feels like a year and a half in terms of departments, like what's our plan, seeing these vacancies, and I appreciate the proactive piece on this. When I look at the solid waste revenue fund, however, it looks like all of your positions the funded positions have been filled. But what I don't understand, though, is the overtime number. So can you walk me through a little bit? Like, I expect overtime in a situation where there are vacancies, but when you're full up, help me reconcile why we would need overtime, or why it would be at the same level as your areas that have higher vacancies.
So that's a great question. The use of overtime was not necessarily associated with staffing for many of these cases. It was due to, at times, equipment failure or the availability of equipment, which was directly related to us having technicians that were able to repair the trucks. As a result, we had to work extended hours to perform curbside collections.
Yeah, that makes 100% sense. I didn't think about that because to me, overtime is expensive, and I'd rather spend the money on enhancing salaries or filling positions than taxing our existing staff. So I appreciate that. All right, let's move on to the recycling side of things. First question is actually for finance. So the rebates that we get from our recycling program, so the commodities, where does that go? Does that go back into the solid waste revenue fund, or does that go back into the general fund?
It's back in the solid waste fund.
Okay. How are we trending with that? I mean, I know, I believe commodity prices on recycling and materials have trended up, but I just don't know that our recycling rates have actually been moving in the opposite direction. So we're not taking advantage of the opportunity to offset some of our revenue, solid waste fees. Can you talk me through that a little bit?
Yeah, so that market has been very fluid. The constant has been cardboard and various type of metals. I don't have the exact number today, but the numbers have not been trending in a manner that we could use for budgeting purposes. It's good to receive the rebate, but it is not a consistent level of rebates. And I guess until that market is stabilized, as you know, each municipality has their own type of materials that we collect. Atlanta's unique because we collect glass as well. And I haven't forgotten, Councilmember Norwood asked me and the team to look into the feasibility of that. And we are. Obviously, glass is heavier. We pay per ton, but we're proud to be on the cutting edge of that sustainability effort. But we also have to be able to provide information on the cost benefit, position, but we will have more to share with you when the solid waste management plan is completed. Hopefully, by this time next year, going into the budget cycle, the solid waste management plan will be completed. We'll look at that and zero waste initiatives as well.
Yeah, and I see other municipalities, well, the reason why I'm focusing on this is that tipping fees we pay, recycling, we actually can get some back. And so there's a calculus that's going on all the time that we could help ourselves in terms of our solid waste expenses and then the solid waste fees that we end up charging the public, rather than just kind of turning and doing the same thing and then passing those fees along to our ratepayers. I just hope that we continue to focus on those other two levers. Other municipalities I've seen in terms of glass have Ripple is the name of an outfit out there where they're just plopping these giant bins out and folks want to recycle glass. I think, we give them opportunity to do it across all the material categories. I think we'll be pleasantly surprised, and it'll lower our tipping fees and then potentially enhance our rebates as well. So I hope y'all will continue to do that exercise and have rigor around it, because if we truly are a city that is leaning into sustainability, we've got to be trying to do everything we can and not just accepting our residents' behavior, things to enhance it. So the other thing I'll also say is that if you haven't heard, the Center, you're never going to mention CHARM, the Center for Harder Recycling Materials. They're actually opening up a new location in DeKalb County. I will challenge us, because I understand DeKalb County did a lot to support the opening of that site in terms of investments and all that. And so I urge us to continue looking for ways that we might be able to add additional CHARM sites, because that too helps us reduce our tipping fee. The final question I had is there were a couple slides in here where you talked about the homeless encampment strategy. So I'd like to hear a little bit more about that. It's something obviously that my district is keenly aware of and sensitive to because of the 3 bridges that have come down. So can you tell me a little bit more about that?
So yes, another great question. Through the support of Mayor Dickens, COO Benjamin, we were able to add 2 additional crews that perform this duty. This is their sole function, excuse me, and we really wanted to choose team members that had the proper temperament to perform this work as well. So the strategy is, it's a twofold approach. One part of the strategy is that we work very closely with the Partners for Home. For large encampments, they will go and do work to provide services to the unsheltered. And after that, those services have been offered and they feel comfortable that the time is appropriate to clear the encampment, that's when DPW would come and clear the encampment. The 2 additional crews that were added have been focused on cleaning up the debris surrounding the sites, as opposed to going into the encampments. I think that has helped to reduce some of the blight. And we just don't know because we haven't used this model long enough. We just really got a full crew, maybe 30 days ago? So we're still collecting data to understand the effectiveness of this strategy.
So the budget increase reflects the two full crews for a full year?
It does.
Okay, and those crews are also available citywide in terms of any time there's an encampment that Partners for Home leads on, but then y'all have the opportunity to go in and move the trash and debris.
So yes, it's a citywide service, and Commissioner Garman also has a project manager that's attached to that work, and a few other Operation Clean Sweep programs as well. So collecting data is going to be critical, and also collecting data about the site characteristics after the sites have been cleaned, right? The site has been cleaned today at 2 o'clock. What does it look like when we return tomorrow at 2 o'clock? Hopefully the AI program that's in the proof of concept stage will be able to assist us with that effort as well.
To me, this is money well spent. I mean, the preventive approach versus the consequences of if they grow or if there's some sort of accident or incident. So I look forward to following this because if it's something that we should proactively expand in terms of additional crews mid-year, then let's absolutely talk about it. So thank you for lifting that. Mr. Chair, I'm done.
Thank you. Mr. Lewis has joined us. Oh, no. Well, he has joined us. I'll proceed with my questions. All right, so legislation's been introduced. It's being held that would provide a rolling 3-year series of solid waste increases. Is the assumption of passage baked into this budget?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the latter part of your statement.
Is the assumption that that legislation will pass as introduced baked into your budget numbers?
We're hopeful.
No, we didn't.
If I understand your question correctly, you're saying is the 3.5% proposed increase, are we looking to add that into the budget if that passed?
Well, if it passes, it will be added. I'm just trying to
Is your budget
clarify
reflecting-
whether or not the assumption is already baked into FY25, and the answer is no, correct?
That's correct.
Not baked in.
I understand your question now. No, it has not been.
Okay. Well, what's the finance department's preferred schedule for taking that up?
Say our position would be, once it's passed, we would come back and do legislation at that point. We won't have an alternative at that point either way. But I think we have to wait and see what the outcome is going to be. There may be other discussion that takes place as it follows its course. So at that point, that's necessary. We'll bring legislation to make the appropriate budget amendment.
And what's the department's preferred schedule for taking it up?
If I understand your question correctly, is when do we prefer for the increase?
I mean, it's been introduced, it's being held. I'm just wondering if there's an assumption that we're going to have another work session. What? I assume we'll have to have a public hearing.
Correct.
I mean, I'd just as soon I'm ready to go with that. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, there are a few more steps that are involved before we have to engage the MPUs. And so we do have certain steps in the timeline that would lead to that request.
There is a requirement that the legislation be socialized across the city so that the citizens have an opportunity to provide comment. But we're not obligated to wait forever before we act on it. And we've been joined by Council President Shipman. So I see over time you're projecting a slight reduction. Is that based on the assumption that we do pass these pay enhancements, maybe a pension sweetener along with it, and that's going to up your FTE amount to the point where you'll be able to reduce overtime, or is there something else you're hanging that on?
Yeah, so also, as I mentioned earlier, we just onboarded a new fleet director, and we anticipate that the vehicle readiness level will improve. Our assumption was a very conservative assumption, so that alone will help reduce the amount of overtime that we've incurred over the previous years.
Okay. So 36 new FTEs proposed in this budget. Are they being earmarked for any one or two activities, or are they going to be spread across your organization as needed?
Yeah, various positions that will be spread across the organization.
And then tell us a little bit more about your AI software pilot.
This particular project, the study area will be performed in the ADID, the Downtown Improvement District. Cameras are attached to vehicles that traverse through that area the most. Through GIS technology, cameras that use an optical recognition feature will be able to capture things like trash, overflowing trash cans, graffiti. This program was designed, or the specifications were put in place by the Department of Public Works. We go to trade shows, vendor booths at professional organizations. When we go to conferences, there are many programs out there that will identify road conditions such as pavement conditions, but we weren't able to locate anyone that offered a program that could score the condition of the road through collecting data that would determine if the appearance of the road is adequate or not. So just for the sake of an example, the vehicles are canvassing a particular area to establish a baseline of information. And once that information is collected, the scoring criteria is set. So if you have a criteria from 1 to 4, you're able to collect that data and deploy your resources where they're most needed, as opposed to using a set schedule across the city. And we do that because we want to make sure, excuse me, that there aren't any appearances of inequities. We often get accused of spending more time on one side of the city than the other. This will allow us to use data to really explain the need to spend more time in other areas due to the presence of maybe litter or other blighted conditions.
Have you had enough side loaders for a long enough period of time that you've been able to see a corresponding drop of injuries regarding personnel assigned to those vehicles, or is it too soon?
It's too soon to call the data reliable. And there are some things that's being forthcoming about it is that come along with this new piece of machinery, or any new piece of machinery. Thanks to Chief Shearbaum, Mayor Dickens, we have the opportunity to create a training environment at the Public Safety Training Center that will be able to provide real-world conditions that the drivers encounter every day. They're in competition with a child, or kids playing pickup basketball, and the ball rolls into the street. If a vehicle is traveling at 25 miles per hour, I think it takes about 30 feet to come to a full stop. So the training environment, we can simulate the vehicles having to maneuver in between vehicles or around mailboxes or whatever that may be, but there is a reasonable amount of minor accidents that are associated with learning this new piece of equipment. And we're confident that we'll be able to significantly mitigate those accidents by creating that real world environment.
All right. Well, looking forward to that. I have just a comment. I read that there's going to be an anti-graffiti campaign or initiative. Is that, I assume that will be led by this department?
So currently, the Atlanta Department of Transportation handles graffiti. That would be part of the MOU that we discussed earlier. But I really want to go into a little bit more detail about this program. This will also be in partnership with the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs and some of the Year of the Youth initiatives, where we'll have teams to go out to not only help with small portion of the eradication of graffiti, but also to contribute to the creation of public art on public structures and spaces. So DPW will work closely with the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs because there is a component. Some cities have a graffiti district. That's not their term. Miami has a district where they embrace graffiti, and it's somewhat of an attraction. Not somewhat, it is an attraction. I know Camille Love has brought that up to me, and she's looking at that. But I'm careful about how we use the word graffiti, because I think there's sometimes confusion with art and graffiti. And we want to do a better job of really categorizing the difference between the two.
All right, I'll bring this up with ATL DOT, but I'll just mention here a cautionary tale. Before you got here, 4 or 5 of the city's most industrious taggers were all arrested all at the same time. To my surprise, the public outcry was so enormous that the charges were dropped. So why shouldn't we expect the same thing to happen if one of our approaches is going to actually to try to be to, change their behavior in a significant, noticeable way?
Based on that history, I can tell you that I think the approach is to bring the community in, to have DCO ADA is working on a program to promote public art. And again, I want to make the distinction between graffiti and public art, and to have some type of an award program. That way, the folks that are well connected to that community, even the taggings that we view as not as acceptable or pleasing, there is a level of respect that they have for art as well. So it's several components, not just the removal. It's really someone curating the relationship across the board. So we can't guarantee any outcomes, but I think these are some of the things that they're looking to add based on the previous experiences.
So then last question, Miami, the idea, I guess, is literally do your coloring inside the lines and not outside the lines. So has Miami seen a significant drop in graffiti where it was unwanted?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, the data that they've collected on that experience. I wasn't aware that that was part of them eradicating graffiti in that particular area, but we'll do some research and get back to you on that one.
Mr. Norwood.
If we're looking at proposed rate increases, have y'all done the analysis of where special services are actually happening? As you know, we put that on property taxes, so everybody, according to their property taxes, pays for special services. And at the time I said, it's location specific. When you pick up a dead animal, you know where the dead animal is. When you clear a vacant lot, you know where it is. So I think it would be very helpful for us to know after this year of providing those services as a part of solid waste. And I understand we may at the end of the day say, nope, it's just going to be property taxes. We can't really follow it. But I think it would be good for the department to have what you can track. I know that some of those services are really difficult to track, but you can know where the vacant lot is. Somebody had to drive there. Somebody had to clean it up. So we could see if, and maybe it's a burden that it goes back to we're all in this together or whatever. But I don't want to be talking to my constituents and say we're going to have 3 years of rate increases and not at least have a thoughtful discussion as to who pays for what, when, and where.
Mr. Lewis.
Speaking to that, can we make sure we look at historical data on that? Because I know right now my district has a lot of blight, a lot of areas that's probably going to be higher than that, but historically we haven't had that service. And so can you make sure you add in the historical data to see where you used to spend your most money at doing that? Also, I want to say I appreciate you for your services in our district for the past 2-3 years. You've been a gem to our district. When I was able to ride around this morning coming up, just seeing how the roads look and seeing how the landscaping was. I hope they were able to keep that going forward. But please add in historical data to that.
Yes, sir, Councilmember Lewis, absolutely. The historic data will be very limited. We just installed the technology on the vehicles to be able to capture the information. Even with the data through ATL Serve, it goes back for about 3 years. So we can certainly, that capability is there, but there won't be much historical data to provide.
All right, does anyone have anything else for Public Works? Commissioner, I want to just say hail and farewell as you leave this challenge and move on to the next chapter, which will be challenging as well. I've been on this committee on CU for 22 years. I've seen a lot of commissioners come and go. I've seen a lot of interims. I've seen a lot of changes. I can easily, well, I just want to commend you for all the hard work. It's a tough job. You know that. We can be, sometimes the manner in which we are most nurturing may not appear to be all that supportive to you, but that's because we all share the same goals. We're all very passionately wanting to get across the finish line of having a city that's, clean and the trash gets picked up and all the myriad of really hard things that you have to deal with. Atlanta, I know from a demographics perspective, has a more transitory population than most. And if you're not from a place, you just don't have, it's not exactly the same sense of pride of ownership. And so there tends to be more littering in those places. And I mean, we've certainly have our share of that. We host one huge event after another, which causes problems. But I like the way you look at things. You're always looking for innovation. You're always looking for kind of the better mousetrap. You've got a great appetite for technology, which has not always been the case here. And so I just want to commend you and recognize you for all that work.
Ditto.
So, Councilmember Shook, President Shipman, my experience has been quite the opposite. You all have been very supportive. The administration has been very supportive. I don't want to walk off this stage without giving a huge thanks to the women and men of DPW. They make it appear that I'm just this great leader, while all the while they're just great folks who have not had the opportunity. And I'm not speaking poorly of my predecessors. I think different seasons provide different opportunities. And I think I asked them to answer the call, and they have done that. To the leadership team, I thank you all. Anyone who's watching from Team DPW, you're near and dear to my heart. Just going down the street, so you have cousins in the Department of Watershed Management that you can associate with, and I just see this as an opportunity to make the city stronger through that combined relationship. Lastly, to Commissioner Garman, I have no doubts that you will do great things and greater things than I have done. Don't hesitate to call if you need me, and I know the department is in capable hands.
We look forward to working with you. And on that note, we are going to recess and reconvene at 11 for Invest Atlanta. Until then, thank you.
It's on you.